So why do you think that Labour lost the election?
I think there was a variety of reasons. It was one of the worst election defeats we've ever faced. And people say that it was Brexit election, and Brexit was a huge factor. It certainly came up on the doorstep in my constituency, and indeed here, where we lost the fantastic Laura Smith as our MP. However, there were a number of other issues. Our manifesto was not being sold on the doorstep, the messages that should have gone through about economic competence, the fact that we were going to roll out a green industrial revolution and kickstart the economy in regions and nations across the UK simply wasn't resonating with people. And certainly the ground campaign itself, we had reports of members being sent to seats that we had no hope of winning when we should have been in constituencies trying to protect MPs who were at risk of losing their seats.
At the same time, though, it can't just be selling the policies that's
Not
the
at
issue.
all.
Is it the policies themselves that are the problem?
Not at all. And certainly, I mean, there were a number of areas where we hadn't done enough work in convincing voters of our credibility on those areas. There were certainly other policies that were part of a longer term programme. They were the right answers to the right questions, but perhaps for a manifesto, they should have been left for a longer term goal. And it led to the situation where many voters felt like they were being peppered with policies. However, the platform upon which many of those policies were developed was a positive one. And as I said, it did deal with the reinvestment and reinvigoration of our economy and the shift of wealth and power away from those few minorities that have it to everybody in every single community. But we didn't get that message through, unfortunately, and we need to recognise that and recognise why we failed. And that's why it's important to have listening exercises in the constituencies where we lost to find out why people didn't trust us, quite frankly.
You say that Labour had the right answers to the right questions. Does that mean you think Labour won the argument?
Not at all. We didn't win the argument. If we'd won the argument, we'd have won the general election, unfortunately, and we didn't. We just weren't trusted. And that goes for the message that we put out in our campaign, which didn't bring together all of the positive aspects of our manifesto. We weren't trusted on Brexit. We weren't trusted to deal with anti-Semitism within our own party. Key issues, and you have to earn trust. It doesn't just happen overnight, unfortunately.
But trust and policies are linked as well, aren't they? I mean, people didn't trust the policies because they thought they were unrealistic.
They did. I mean, for example, one example that I'll give is broadband. And there was a clear argument that could have been made for broadband about how bringing broadband into public ownership would speed up the rollout of broadband, which would improve productivity because more businesses would be connected to that high-speed broadband. However, we weren't given the opportunity or the time to make that argument in such a small space of time within the general election.
It's interesting listening to you, though, because you're almost saying that the policies were the right ones, but they weren't sold in the right way, or you didn't have the arguments necessary to convince people that they were right. This is your worst election result since 1935. When you lost seats like Don Valley, Blythe Valley, that have always been Labour. Yeah. It's almost like you're arguing that you should, take a dustpan and brush to an earthquake site.
And I think we've also got to recognise that the decline of our support in these seats hasn't happened overnight. It has been happening over a period of time, certainly over the last 10 years, but I would go as far back as 1979, where our economic model changed and we saw the deindustrialisation of areas right across the UK and in our regions and nations. And many of our communities haven't recovered from that, and they bear the scars of that. And what we needed to see in this general election was the Labour Party going out there and showing how we were going to solve that problem, rebalance and reinvest in our economy and build a world after Brexit, and we didn't get that message through.
You wrote in an article this week in Tribune, I don't disagree with the policies, I've spent the last 4 years writing them. So are you the continuity Corbyn candidate now?
Not at all, not at all. It annoys me when people say that, and unfortunately as a woman it annoys me even more. I'm a person in my own right. I was very proud of the Green Industrial Revolution, our Green New Deal that I spent nearly 4 years developing with members, with trade unionists, with green groups, to make sure that we had policies developed from the ground up. And that provided a lot of answers in terms of both what we need to do to tackle the climate emergency, but also what we need to do to kickstart our economy and invest in areas that needed to see new, high-paid, high-skilled jobs. And that would have provided a catalyst for that. And it's sad that we didn't push that in our general election campaign, and we didn't make sure that that was part of the key messaging that went out to our communities.
So if you say that you're not the continuity Corbyn candidate, would you describe yourself as a Corbynite?
I would describe myself as a socialist, and I supported Jeremy from the start because he believed in many of the same things that I did, as many of people within our party do, and indeed many of our MPs do. And what we need to do now is stop labelling ourselves as Corbynites, as socialists or whatever. We are in the Labour Party. We are all socialists within the Labour Party. We need to unite. We need to build a programme that can win, and we need to take our communities to the state that they should be in, where they're invested in, where the quality of life is the highest law in every single community.
OK, I'm quite keen to get a bit of a picture about the kind of policies that you would pursue if you do end up winning the leadership election. One party, of course, that did end up having a very good election result was the SNP. So if you were a leader, would you ever grant a second independence referendum?
I'm fully committed to the union, and I don't think that should be shaken in any way. But ultimately, the people of Scotland need to make the case, and they've got their own parliament to determine whether they want to push that, and that will be for me as a Prime Minister to review and to look at. And I wouldn't want to inhibit the democracy of people, because that's one of the most fundamental pillars that we're proud of in this country, quite frankly. But no, I don't support in any way the breaking up of Scotland.
But you could
from
grant
the UK.
You could grant a second referendum.
I wouldn't be in favour of it, I'm honest, and it's not something that I'll be pushing for or arguing for. I'll be arguing to keep the union, and I think we need to work very hard as a party to rebuild trust in our Scottish heartlands, which have been declining over time for a variety of reasons. But ultimately, people must feel that they have a democratic voice.
On the House of Lords as well. So you wrote this week that Labour must go to war with the political establishment, pledging a constitutional revolution that sweeps away the House of Lords. Does that mean you want to abolish the House of Lords?
That's right, I do want to abolish the House of Lords, and we'll be rolling out, as my campaign progresses, how we intend to really shake up that constitutional package, because MPs like myself, and you met Laura earlier on, we're fed up of the Westminster bubble, and we're fed up of our communities feeling like decisions about their lives are made in Westminster consistently. We've got to shift power and wealth into our communities, and that needs to be done in a democratic and structured way.
So how would you find a system where there was a check on the activities of the House of Commons? Because that is historically the role of the House of Lords, right?
There would need to be checks and balances in place, but to have a set of completely unelected people doing that, I don't think is right. And I think many people within our communities would not think that was right. We need to have people who are able, experts, people who feel that they're democratically accountable to the communities that they represent, not people who were appointed by parties.
Then what do you make of the current makeup of the House of Lords then, the people who are in there?
I don't know a lot about all of the Lords, if I'm honest, individually. We've got some fantastic...
Even though you want to abolish them.
We've got some fantastic people, of course, that, have done fantastic things for their communities, but it's not them as individuals that I'm concerned about. It's the fact that they're not democratically accountable to anybody, and I don't think that is the basis of good democracy.
OK. Now, the next leader, of course, will have to deal with the allegations of anti-Semitism within the Labour Party, something that we all know was brought up during the election campaign by lots of voters. Now, this weekend, the president of the Board of Deputies of British Jews has said that the relationship between Labour and the Jewish community has been all but destroyed. Yeah. And she's outlining 10 pledges that she wants all of the leadership candidates to sign up to. Things like making the disciplinary process fully transparent and independent. Yeah. Will you sign up to those?
I will, indeed, straight away. And I think we need to work very hard and very robustly, whoever the leader becomes, to repair our relationship with the Jewish community. I was absolutely devastated, as many of our members were, to knock on the doors of Jewish community members who said that they just didn't trust the Labour Party anymore. And we do need to work hard to rebuild that trust. But that requires action. It requires making sure that we implement any recommendations that the EHRC come back with, and they're due to report shortly. And it means adopting the recommendations that the Board of Deputies have put forward.
If you were so devastated to hear the message from British Jews, what did you do personally as a member of the Shadow Cabinet for 3 years to try and tackle anti-Semitism in Labour?
So I wasn't happy with the way our process was being run, I'll be honest. I don't think we were dealing with complaints quickly enough, and I think that's quite clear. I've been quite vocal about that. I also felt that there should have been a level of independence to the allegations, the way they were investigated, and that's not just for anti-Semitism, by the way. That's in terms of all complaints, racism, abuse, sexual misconduct.
So what did you do? Did you speak up? Did you have a go at Jeremy Corbyn? What did you do?
I did. I mean, I spoke to Jeremy about it. I spoke to various members of the team. I spoke to various members of the NEC about that. And
what did they say?
Well, I think everybody wanted to find the answers. There was nobody that I came across that didn't want to tackle this problem. But what we didn't do was help ourselves to tackle it. We didn't act quickly enough. The messages that we were sending out to the community were confusing. We weren't working hand in hand with the Jewish communal organisations in the way that we should and responding to what they were advising us to do. And that mistrust built rapidly over time. And we will need to act quickly to remedy that. And I hope that we do, whoever the leader is, because we need to make sure that we are the party that has the gold standard on any form of anti-Semitism, racism and discrimination. And that's why we're all proud to be Labour members. We've got to make sure that we have our own house in order on this.
Emily Thornberry was asked to rate Jeremy Corbyn's dealing of anti-Semitism. She gave it a 2 out of 10. What would you give it?
I wouldn't give anything a rating. I mean, it's not...
Well, you gave him a rating of 10 out of 10.
Well, it's not top trumps. It's too serious to give ratings. We didn't tackle the issue. It's as simple as that. We have lost trust within the Jewish community. They don't believe that we're tackling anti-Semitism. And talking about small numbers of our members being involved in it and saying that it's not a big issue isn't good enough, because if you don't tackle the problem, you don't have robust processes in place, and we haven't worked with Jewish communal organisations, then we've not done our job.
Does Jeremy Corbyn bear personal responsibility for it?
He does, and he's apologised. And I think any Labour politician that leads the Labour Party should apologise again for what has happened, because it has been unacceptable.
Now, I just want to talk a bit about your campaign, because many people at the beginning of the race thought that you were the front-runner. It seems that Keir Starmer's perhaps taken that mantle. I just wonder if you think that your campaign's got off to a bit of a rocky start. I mean, you were the last person to declare. You had some quite negative reviews from MPs coming out of that parliamentary Labour Party meetings. One's told The Guardian that it was like listening to someone, it was like watching paint dry.
They're not a fan then, obviously, are they? You can't win them all, can you?
Are you a bit disappointed with how things have gone so far?
No, I mean, I wasn't ready to launch a leadership campaign before Christmas because I was having a period of reflection. I haven't been planning to become the leader of the Labour Party, as many people know. I didn't have a campaign ready to go because I was trying to win the general election. And like many members and many activists right across the country, I was in a state of shock at the devastation, and we needed to have a look at what happened in our own communities and understand the reasons to why we had such a shocking defeat. And over Christmas, I spent time with my family thinking about what was right for the party, what would be right for my family, and how I could drive forward my principles within the party to make sure that we could transform the communities in the way that we should. And I've never been personally ambitious. I got involved in politics because of my principles, and it's my principles that drove me to stand to become leader of the Labour Party, because I'm proud of fighting for the platform where we, reinvest in our economy, where we protect the vulnerable, where we push a green industrial revolution to tackle climate change urgently. And we offer a vision of hope for the future, but not just a vision of hope, about aspiration. And that's what our whole movement is about. It's about everybody aspiring to be the best that they possibly can be, whether you're a business or whether you're an individual. And somewhere along the line in our campaign, that message never came through, and that's certainly what I'll be pushing.
It's interesting you say there that you aren't personally ambitious. And I know that you've been kind of encouraged to stand by lots of people in your party as the standard bearer of the left, if you like. Do you really want it?
Of course I do. I want to lead this party, and not only lead the party, I want to be Prime Minister, because I got involved in politics to change the world. I got involved in politics because I knew that sitting from the sidelines in a comfortable career, feeling good with myself because I'd come from nothing and aspired to do very, very well and achieved, that wasn't going to make life better for people around me. That wasn't going to mean that the people I grew up with were going to have the same things that I enjoyed in life. So that's why I wanted to get involved in politics, and I haven't finished doing that job yet. So that's why I'm going to become Prime Minister.
And just a couple of quick questions just to end. Your friend and flatmate Angela Rayner is running for deputy. Did you kind of come up with a pact to run together, like in the flat over a takeaway and a glass of wine? How did that happen?
Well, we always joked, to be honest, that the pair of us, that, you know, oh, if it ever goes wrong, you know, it's going to be me and you are going to have to sort it out. We're the only ones that are going to be able to do this, you know. And then when we...
And it went wrong, so...
I know, exactly. And then when we had the defeat and it was devastating, we both sat down and was like, you know, we were joking, you know, we actually are going to have to think about this, because obviously, you know, everybody loves Angela because she's amazing, and I was getting, you know, contacted by various people, and we were getting encouraged, you know, to do this. So we wanted to make sure that what we did was together, because we thought that together as a joint ticket, a leader and a deputy, because we're so close. We're close but slightly different, you know, in terms of the way we operate and the way we are. We thought we would be a really positive unifying force for the Parliamentary Labour Party, for our membership, and also send a positive message out to the country after years of division, quite frankly, and quite fractious politics, that politics does not have to be nasty.
Talking about fractious debates, I've got to get your view on the big debate at the moment. Harry and Meghan, where do you stand?
Harry and Meghan, about whether they leave the UK or not. I don't want them to leave the UK, but I'll be honest, I mean, Meghan, you know, she's talked about hostility from, you know, other kind of sections of the press. I mean, certainly one of the things that I've witnessed in my kind of early days of my campaign, this was even before I decided to stand as leader, were the levels of abuse and the fact that I was getting targeted above all the other candidates for some reason. And it seemed quite hostile, and, you know, I think she's faced, you know, horrific abuse within the press, and that's not acceptable. You know, challenge people. Sexism. I think certainly, you know, male counterparts don't receive the same level of hostility, and I think the media has a job to make sure that it is balanced. It is looking at the facts. Of course, you know, report facts and attack where you can see that there are misdemeanours, wrongdoings or inaccuracies, but don't attack a woman for the sake of attacking a woman.
Just finally, can you clear it up? Is there a hyphen in Long Bailey or not?
There actually is a hyphen, but I'm not bothered. I mean, I was Rebecca Long before I got married, and I thought it was a really good idea to keep the Long, because I was quite proud. We're all girls in our family, so there was no one to kind of carry on the name. So I wanted to add the Bailey on, not to upset the husband, to make him feel like he was part of it all. So I'm not bothered. If people put a hyphen in or not, it doesn't bother me, as long as the Long's there and the Bailey's there.
Cool, the definitive answer. Thank you very much.